Hello. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Feel It to Heal It podcast. Okay, so today we're talking about the middle path, and this was inspired by a conversation that I was having this morning where I was like laughing and crying, and I was really noticing how my brain was wanting to do this like all or nothing thing where it was like, oh, okay, I have this opportunity to relate to something differently that the universe has been teaching me a lot about. And so my brain was like, oh, well, then you have to do it completely different than the last time, or else you're just going to repeat the same mistakes. And it's like, that is just a way that our brain tries to figure things out and to get control and to be hyper vigilant and be perfectionistic. And it's like there's always a middle path. So it doesn't ever have to be all or nothing. And what I was sharing on Instagram before hopping on to record as this pod is that we make so many excuses as to why we don't show up or do the thing. And here I am, if you guys are watching on Instagram or on YouTube, I'm showing up with a stuffy nose because I've been crying and laughing a lot this morning. I'm also recovering from a cold. My back is out. I'm wearing my Disney pajama shirt. I have no makeup on. Like I'm literally in my pajamas. And I could have come up with a million reasons why not to show up, right? Like, oh, I'm 55 minutes late, right? At that point, I'm like, oh, let me just skip it. Let me just not do it. I don't even know what to talk about today. And we just overcomplicate things. We're like, oh, we're not going to do that thing because we don't know what to talk about, or we don't, we're in our pajamas or whatever the fuck it is. And it's like, I hope that this is an example for you. Like, just show up, just simplify it. Don't make it so big in your head. Just show up and do the thing that you want to do. Show up for your dreams, show up for yourself, show up for the people you love. Like, just show up. And it doesn't matter what you look like, how you feel, like, just show up and you'll be so glad you did. And this is going to be a very abbreviated, quickie episode because I have a chiropractor appointment soon. And it doesn't matter because it's like you just show up. You don't have to make it this big thing of like, oh, this has to be an hour long and it has to be me dressed up nicely. It's like, no. So for all my fellow entrepreneurs who show up online, or just apply this, even if you're not an entrepreneur, just like show up, whatever that looks like to you. So talking about the middle path, sorry, my cat is like licking this mat and it's really annoying me. Can you stop? Like the sound of her tongue just like scratching it. Okay, anyway. So I used to be a DBT therapist and we would talk about the middle path a lot. And I still apply that just to my everyday life and with my clients of when we think we have, like, let's say you're making a decision. So think about right now a decision that you have to make. And think about when your brain goes to this place of what has to be all or nothing, or it has to be this extreme or this extreme. And we get into this very like black and white, all or nothing, right or wrong extremes. We love to operate in extremes and it keeps us stuck. It keeps us limited. It keeps us frustrated. It keeps us hyper vigilant around like, well, if I did this and I made a mistake on this and I have to do it the complete opposite way so that I don't make a mistake on this. And it's just all perfectionism. So walking the middle path would be, okay, I don't, let's say, all right, let me see if I can use an example to make this more applicable. Okay. So, for example, there is something in my life right now. I won't go into too many details because I'm not ready to share all the things, but there's something in my life that I needed support on. And my lesson has, oh, for some people, the lesson is, that you are safe to receive support because there's this spectrum of hyper independence, like I can do it all on my own. And then the other end of that extreme is hyper dependence, codependence of not trusting yourself to do anything. So I've fallen more on the end of codependence, where a lot of my work has been needing to learn how to trust myself and not outsource my power, outsource my safety, seek external saving of like, I need help on this or else I can't do it. And then when I would try and relate differently of like, okay, like I can trust myself, I would then oscillate to this other end of hyper independence. And I would think, okay, well, now's your chance to relate differently. You don't need to lean on anyone for support. You got this. And then I wasn't actually meeting my needs. And my needs were that I needed to learn how to trust myself, but I also needed some level of support that was very real. And there are different things and projects that I'm working on in my life right now that I need support with. And so, for example, I'm writing this book, right? And I need some support. The first level of support I got was enrolling in a self-published book course. And so I used that and I wrote what I could from that. And then for this next draft, I needed a little bit more support. But I knew that the highest level of support that was offered would be me seeking external saving and not actually believing in myself and not meeting myself where I'm at in terms of my own growth, in terms of building my own self-trust, in terms of finances, time, energy, all the things. So I chose the middle path. And that felt really good because I was like, okay, I'm allowing myself to receive support, which I need, but I'm also allowing enough spaciousness where I'm going to have to believe in myself and not reach for like the highest level of support for someone to just like hold me every step of the way. So we all fall into different categories of that, right? Some of you listening might be more on the hyper independent side where it feels really vulnerable and scary to even receive any amount of support. And then others of you might be more on the codependent side where it's like you don't think you can do anything on your own. So that's just one example of the middle path, but it could literally be applied to anything. Like think about anything in your life where your mind goes to the all or nothing, the two extremes, and you're like, what would be the middle path? The middle path is something where I can, like, maybe it doesn't have to be this thing over here or this thing over here, but we can choose something in the middle. And you can do this a lot with, friendships, partners, family members, where essentially you're learning how to compromise. You're learning how to find this middle path of like, this person wants to do this and I want to do this, or they believe in this and I believe in that. And how can we meet in the middle? There's always a middle path. So anytime you're faced with a dilemma, anytime you're faced with a hard decision, there's always a middle path of what would it look like to not have to go to either extreme or the all or nothing and actually allow myself to be in the middle. Another example, you guys know that I share a lot about like my nutrition and my fitness journey and wanting to build a really strong, fit, healthy body. And so there are so many extremes that exist. Humans love to operate in the extremes. There are so many extremes that exist within that world of like, okay, one extreme is I'm gonna just never eat sugar again. I'm never gonna have pizza again. Or the other extreme is like, I'm just gonna eat anything I want. And this is literally how I used to be. I would be so hardcore on both extremes where it'd be like, okay, I'm not having one bite of sugar. And then the other extreme would be like, I'm just gonna eat all the sugar. And so the middle path is, okay, for the majority of the time, I'm gonna be so intentional about making sure that I'm putting in really nourishing food in my body. But if there's an intentional time that I want to enjoy a slice of pizza, if I'm visiting my family in New York and I love New York pizza, or I'm wanting to have, an ice cream cone, whatever it is, like I'm not going to feel restricted. I'm going to feel intentional, right? The middle path is intentionality. Like it always comes back to intentionality. And it's so sneaky as humans because we can justify a million reasons like why we're doing the thing that we know we actually shouldn't be doing. And so it's all about energy. It's about how do things land in your body. So when you're like, oh, I'm going on the shopping spree when I'm trying to save money, and your energy is justifying, like, oh, but it's okay, there's just the sale and blah, 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 versus the energy of, oh, I saw the shirt, it lit up my whole soul. I need that, I want it. It might stretch me financially, but I still am going to be okay if I do it. And that's intentional, right? It's like that middle path of intentionality. So I want you to look at any area in your life that you tend to oscillate on the extremes and see what a good middle path would be. And if you need support with specific examples, DM them to me and I can literally share with you like, okay, how would we find the middle path in that? So again, remembering that when your mind goes to either extreme, that is a trauma response. It is like trying to right the wrong, right? Of like, oh my God, I did this thing and so I can never do it again. And so I'm going to do it the complete opposite way. And it's like, no, that's actually not true. Every single thing that comes up is its own unique present moment. And so the more that you can relate to it from its own unique present moment and not apply past stuff on, like project past experiences onto it, you're going to be able to see that present moment so much more clearly and actually look into what feels in alignment, what actually feels authentic, rather than, oh, I should do this because that's going to prevent me from experiencing the shame that I felt when I made this other choice. That's in survival mode. So getting out of survival mode is, how can I actually just focus on this present decision, this present moment, this present situation, this present dialect, this present dilemma, whatever it is, and get super clear on what feels the most authentic and in alignment for me in this moment, not based on experiences from the past. Now, don't get me wrong, we want to learn from the past experiences to do things differently. But oftentimes, when we're on a healing journey, we get hyper vigilant around, like, I need to do this differently. Right. And so then we get like caught up in the overthinking of what does that look like? And it's like, yes, you can do things differently, but the different thing doesn't have to be the opposite of what you used to do. The difference can be that you are relating to it from a place of clarity and groundedness and trust, not actually attaching to what that outcome is or what that decision is, because that's going to look different again based on each unique present moment. So relating differently could be not reaching for external saving, actually allowing yourself support when you need support, getting grounded before you make the decision, not making the decision based on temporary impulsive emotion. That could be the way that you relate differently. It's not based on the actual thing, it's the energy and the emotion in which you are relating to that thing. So that is a little quickie for you on the middle path. And let me know how this resonates, and let me know if you need any clarification or just more specific examples of something that you're navigating in your life. But that was kind of a little bit about how I landed on this middle path this morning, where the specific example was that when I'm receiving a certain payment, and when I received this certain payment the last time that I received it, I didn't hold it in the way that I wanted to. And so now that I'm receiving it again, I had to look at, okay, my brain is saying, well, since you didn't hold it, now you have to hold it and not touch it, right? But that would be going to the opposite extreme. Whereas a middle path was me actually getting clear on, like, okay, how do I want to intentionally use this and break it down? So like, okay, this amount is going to go into savings, this amount is going to go to debt, this amount is going to investing in these things that are intentional for me to invest in. And that was my middle path, right? It wasn't like, oh my God, I have to spend all of it or I have to hold all of it. It was like, oh, I can do a little bit of everything in a way that's going to fill in those nourishing parts of what I'm trying to fulfill. So that was just an example that came up for me this morning, but you can apply this to anything in your life where you tend to land on either extreme. And then looking at, oh wait, those extremes don't actually have to be the only choice. There can be a middle path. All right. I love you guys. Thanks for tuning into this quickie. I'm about to get cracked at the chiropractor. Okay, we have a comment coming in. This is what I was going to talk with you about with the person and I. He's on one end and I'm on the other, and how do we balance out if this is about financials? Yeah, so it's about finding the middle path. So again, in partnerships, you're gonna have one person that's like the frugal, let's save everything, and then you're gonna have the partner that's like, let's spend everything. I've always been the one that's like, let's spend everything, and then I've had partners that are like, let's not spend anything. My most recent relationship, it was the first time I was dating someone who was like very wealthy, and he was one of the most frugal people I've ever met. Like, would not want to spend anything. And I'm like, okay, yo, we got to enjoy our money, while also being intentional. So, yeah, you have to find that middle ground of like learning from each other. How can we be intentional where we're not hoarding everything in scarcity, but we're intentionally holding some of it that feels nourishing and safe for our nervous system without attaching on to like, this is going to be the only amount that I get. And then also, being intentional with where are you spending in a way that's not intentional. So again, it's all about intentionality. It's about meeting each other in the middle, not holding it all, but not spending it all, holding some, intentionally spending some. All right, my lovies, I will see you the next morning tea live. I love you all so much. If you need support, my DMs are always open, and thanks for tuning in. Bye bye.